Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning from wherever you're joining us from today in the world. My name is Sarah, and I'm the Program and Event Manager at the Reactor in Sydney, Australia. Welcome to another Microsoft Reactor live stream event. Here we have on the screen Renee, who's just in the process of getting up her presentation at the moment. And we are on our fourth and final episode of our Cloud Advocate Renee Noble's series this month, which is Code to Cloud. So firstly, for anyone that's joined us for the first time today, just a bit of background on Renee herself. Renee is a self-proclaimed Jane of all trades. She worked in government doing ML and Python backend full stack in the ed tech startup sector and dabbles with embedded tech. In her spare time, she leads the Girls Programming Network for Women and Girls to Realize Their Potential as Techies. She's also started a business to help bring exciting coding opportunities to kids and teachers. So we will be speaking for about 40 to 45 minutes with 10 minutes for questions. However, do ask questions throughout. And as always, please do let us know, say hi to Renee in the comment section and let us know where you've joined us from in the world today. At the conclusion, we'll share with you a link to our survey, and that'll have the event code 15398. So if you have time to fill that out, that would be great. And we'll also share with you a link to our YouTube channel, so you can watch the on-demand version back if there's anything that you missed from today, straight after today's session. But for now, if Renee is ready, what we'll do is we'll get that presentation up and we'll kick off. Oh, Renee, we'll just unmute you there.
Second, Sarah.
That's okay.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Sarah. We're having a few technical difficulties because in the last 30 seconds, I've lost the ability to share in StreamYard. So that's a bit sad. So just give me 2 seconds. But while we're getting started, could you all please let me know if you've been joining us each week for Code to Cloud? Like, have you been joining since week 1? Is this your first time joining us here? Have you been like catching up on demand, watching the videos in your own time? Love to hear who's online and where you are. Well, I deal with the fun of technology. Aren't computers just wonderful?
No worries. That's what a live stream's all about. This sometimes happens. So yeah, as Renee said, just let us know. Balaji, I can see you're back again from Bangalore. Thank you for joining us. I know it's probably about lunchtime there, so thank you for tuning in. Whilst Renee's also trying to reconnect, Renee, maybe if you wanted to exit and come back in, what I can do is
I will do what I'm going to have to do.
Let's do that. And while she's doing that, I'm just going to add into the conversation the links, the additional resources for today. So if everyone wants to click on those and go check out the resources that we've provided as well, I'll just put those in the comment section and we'll be back with you shortly.
Okay, I think we're back. I can just find the screen with my slides. Here we go. Thank you all for being so patient and waiting while we deal with these glorious technical difficulties. Just had to restart Chrome. This is what I get for using Chrome and not Edge. I feel like this has come towards me. So this is my own doing. But thank you all for being here for the last episode of Code to Cloud. I've had a really great time working with all of you so far, and some of you sent in your questions and things. Make sure you jump on these links to the series page and to the GitHub repo. Thank you those who have forked the repo. And for what we're heading into first is our pull request showcase to show off what's been submitted. But I can also see that a lot of people have forked it and maybe didn't have the confidence to actually submit a pull request, but have done some work in their own time. So I'm really, really proud of everyone who's contributed. So thank you all so much for being on the journey with me. So just to cover what we're doing today, we're going to start with our pull request showcase, see what's been submitted over the week, and then see what we did last week. So we were working on our RSVP button, and we started to set up Azure Blob. So I'll have a quick recap, and then we'll go into what is a blob, what are containers, and why do we use blobs. And then we'll be using containers and adding our blobs, so pushing our data for our RSVPs to the cloud, to Azure Blob. Then we'll find a way to show off our data, because what use is data if we can't see what we've collected. And finally, pushing our blobs to the cloud. So we have our whole thing synced up on the cloud. So our data always lives on the cloud, which is cool because we can use our Azure Blob locally, but we want to make sure it's connected to our live hosted website. And finally, I'm going to give you a sneak preview at what I'm doing next month for my series in March. So let's get started with our pull request showcase. So let's jump across to our site. So last week we worked on adding our RSVP buttons. So we've also had Sarah has sent in her updated RSVP button on her scroll page. So we can have a look here and we can click I'll be there. And we have this amazing seal that appears on our scroll, which I really love, that you went to the extra effort of not just making a div appear with a phrase saying, we'll see you there, but you actually went and added an image in the hidden div. So you can hide anything you want, including an image. So that was fantastic. So thank you so much, Sarah, one of our core contributors to the invitation website. So jumping back to our slides, so I'm just going to pop over here so we can have them a bit closer. So what did we do last week? Well, last week we were working on our RSVP button. As we just saw, we saw Sarah's RSVP button in action. And then when that happens, when we click that button, it sent a request back to our server. So let's take a look at our code from last week. So in our server, we created an API endpoint, RSVP, which we sent our RSVP name as well as the event ID that we created, which was the combination of the host's name and the event name. So from that, we then put it in a file, and then we can now see that file. So when you go, if we go to our locally hosted version of this website, we can see the data comes into our data folder here. So let's actually run our server. It's already up. Let's just run it again, make sure it's up to date. And then we can jump into, stop it because it's not giving us the link. Give it another run. Hopefully there is our link. We can open it here. This is our locally hosted version. We're going to make this invitation. Friend is going to RSVP to the event. And now we can see that we have an RSVP file that contains friend who has said they are coming to the party. So that's fantastic for our local version, but we do want to get that up on Azure Blob, and which we'll be working on today. So last time we started off by creating our container. We had a couple of technical difficulties in the last 3 minutes where our virtual environment, which had been working for the previous 57 minutes, decided to give up on us. But I did discover that the hot tip to do is right here in the bottom corner. It tells you what your virtual environment is. And because I do have several versions of this project, from when I'm creating the idea of what we might cover in the stream to dividing it up into each week and everything, the virtual environment somehow got a little bit confused in that time and decided to cark it in the last 3 minutes. So it was actually a really quick fix to get it to work. But yeah, so we're all good to go this week. But luckily we had one we'd prepared earlier, we could see. So we also started by importing .env and the load.env function from that library, because we created our environment variable folder .env over here, where we store our connection key from to Azure Blob. So I'm not going to show you that because it's got my secret key in it, but if you missed last week, you go have a look back where I show you how to create your secret file. But it's really just creating a file that has environment variable names. The one that we added is Azure Storage Connection String. So while we're working locally, we'll be using .env to open this file. But when we go up and put it on our hosted web app on Azure Web Services, we won't need this. We'll actually be putting our secret keys somewhere else that's already built into Azure. And it means we'll actually just be able to comment out this section when we get to it. So I'll start by also re-importing, uncommenting these lines, because we started with these last week. I just commented them out so I could commit the code, so people who wanted to contribute could fork the repo without having the blob thing that doesn't actually isn't fully functioning yet. So what these sections were doing were, we started by making a container, well, we started by collecting the connection string and then creating a client by connecting to that string and then creating a container, RSVPs. I'm going to make a new one for this week so we can see what we're up to. RSVP live. And then we created a client here. So we can save that. And then we can run the code. So whenever the code gets loaded, we're going to start by making a container. And you might realize that that's going to cause a problem shortly, but we're going to do it just once, which will be absolutely fine. So we've run our code. Just want to make sure. And did we run that newly? Yep. Think so. Maybe not. We'll just kill that code and run it again. No, we had run it once, and I'll give you a sneak preview of the error that we're going to get. The container already exists because we can't create a container with the same name multiple times. So we're going to get to how to make that not happen first. But before we do that, we're going to jump across and have a look at our Azure Blob that we've just built. So we're going to go to home, and I'm going to jump to our storage account, which is called Live RSVPs. In here, we can go to our container, and we've just made RSVPs live, and we haven't put anything in there yet, but that's what's coming up next. But let's take a peek back at our slides to discuss what we're actually working on doing today. So firstly, let's say, what is a blob? A blob is, well, containers are a way of storing unstructured data, and with these bits of unstructured data are blobs, or just files, really, of any kind of format with any kind of data in it. It could just be a string of binary that we want to put in a file, an image, or really anything that you might not want to put in a structured database. And the reason we're using this is because it's super simple, because we just want to have a file for each event. So blobs have the file that they contain the data in, as well as some metadata, so we can help find our file inside of the blob and do actions on that file. So today we'll be creating a file for each event, and then we'll put that file into the container, and we'll be updating it every time someone RSVPs to our event. So we've had a look at what we did last week, and now we're going to work on adding our blob to the container. So let's jump across to the code. So first up, we realize we've got this first error that we've got. We've already created the function, created the container, and that's not cool to make it a second time because it would be very confusing. Do you want to delete the old one? Should we make another one with the same name? That's not really possible, because how would we tell them apart? So we're going to make sure that we check that if we've made a container by that name already, and if we haven't, we'll make a container. If we have, we'll just load the container. So we're going to use a Python construct called try except. So first, we're going to try and create a container, and then we're going to see if we get the error that we had before, that the container already exists. So let's put in here. So first up, we're going to just write try, and then inside of our try, we're going to try and create the container. Then it might throw an error, because it might say, hey, that already exists. And we called the error that this was resource exists error. So we can say accept, and we can say we only want to accept a specific kind of error, which is resource exists error. That way it will match that. And if that happened, we'll do a different thing. But if something else horrible else happened, then it will just error as normal. So we don't want to let every kind of error through. We just want to let this specific kind of error through. But to do that, we're going to need to grab that error so we can identify it. So we're going to go from azure.core.exceptions, where you can just get all of the exceptions that they have. We're going to import resource exists error. It should have an S. Make sure I spelled that correctly. Let's just pop in, just copy and paste one. There we go. Okay, so now we have a hold of that error. We can just say, check out this error. If that's the one that's happened, we're going to actually not want to, create the thing. We're going to do something else instead. And instead of throwing an error, we're going to get our container client from the one that already exists by saying blob service client dot get container client and then the container name. Okay, cool. Do we already have get container client in our list of things up here? We have container client, so that seems to be just giving it to us already. We'll find out when we run it if it is angry that we haven't actually imported something. Okay. So next up, we can now run this code again, and it won't create an error. So that'll be nice. So we'll run that. And we see that it's alive now. So that's great. Cool. So now we can move on to our next part, which is we've got the container, but now we want to put some blobs into the container. So we're going to scroll back to where we were last week. So last week we were in our API. We used our API and we also to send our event through. So what we did last week is we created a file locally. And we're going to want to do that so we can upload the file if one doesn't already exist. But if one does already exist on Azure Blob, we're going to want to download that file instead and then add to it or build a file around the data that we collect from Azure Blob first off. So first off, I'm actually going to start by commenting this out because we're actually going to write a good chunk of code to get this working. So I'm going to put that in a separate function so we can just call our sync to blob function, I'm going to call it. So we want to check if something's on blob, grab it if it is, and then add to it and push it up, or create a new thing if something isn't already in the blob for an event that's just been RSVPed to. So we'll start off by, I think we're going to start off by saying that we want to check, we're going to give some scaffolding first, I think. So we've got our return JSON.dumps 200 status. So that's our success status, but we might fail because we're doing some more, tricky stuff now. So if something might go wrong with Azure Blob, potentially, we don't always just want to give back 200 because there might be something wrong with the format of the request that was made as well. So we're going to add another try except here. So we're going to try, and what we're going to do is we're going to try to do the thing that is going to be hopefully successful. So we're going to make a function called sync blob, and we're going to give it an event ID and an attendee that we get from our request. We're going to have to write this in a second, of course. And then if that all goes well, then we'll return the good status code, the success. Otherwise, if something goes horribly wrong, we're going to return, I'm just going to grab this because it's going to be mostly the same, except for we're going to return a 400 error. That just is the general something's gone wrong error. And could be a bad form submission is potentially, the thing that would happen there. So we've got this set up. So that's our structure, but we're going to need to create our function where we're actually going to make these files and push them to Azure Blob now. So we're going to start by making sync blob. I'm just going to copy this because it's right there. And we're going to have two parts of this. We're going to have the part where we create a new file if one doesn't exist, and we're going to have the part where we try and get something from Azure Blob and add to that if it already exists for the event. So let's start with some general information that we'll need on both sides of that first. So we're going to have a file name because that's, as we said, we're storing files in Azure Blob. So I'm going to make it the event ID plus .txt. Super simple file name. There, it's a super simple file type. It's just a list of people who are coming, one name per line. And then I'm going to get the path that I want to store the file locally when we download it from Azure Blob or when we build one ourselves. So I'm going to make that file, local file. Path is going to be, we're going to use OS again to build that path that we did last week. So we're going to say join, and then we're going to call it, what did we call we've got our local path and our file name. So actually, yeah, just doing this again. So I'm going to grab these parameters. And we'll need to comment that line out as well. So that's all part of that section that we're moving into our function. Okay, so, and then finally, we want to get our blob client. So this allows us, to add stuff to Azure Blob. This one's a long one. So I'm going to paste it in from one I prepared earlier so I don't make any typos and you don't have to sit here watching me type. So the Blob client, we're using Blob service client to get the Blob client using the container and the file name we've just created. And now we want to try and, so we've got two parts of it. So what part are we going to do first? I'll just put some structure in so we have what we're going to do. So we want to try and get an existing blob is what we're going to do first. And then if that doesn't work, create a file and push it to Azure Blob. That'll be if someone's the first person to RSVP to an event. Okay. So let's start with the latter case because we've actually already basically done half of this case when we created our file last week. So we'll grab what we had here and pop it in here. Okay, we've renamed what we were calling this. We're calling this local file. So we can write our singular one to the file. And then we need to push our file to Azure Blob. So that's all we need to do to build the local file. And then we just need to do a similar thing to take all the contents out of that, write it as a binary to Azure Blob, and then send it off. So we're going to, once again, we're going to open this same file. But instead of writing this time, we're going to say read binary because we just want to read out all that data in binary format. And then we're just going to pop it off to Azure Blob with a super simple command, upload blob. And then we just say data. I'm going to call this data this time. So that's, we're just ripping out all the data and we're just going to pop it off to Azure Blob. So super simple there. So let's actually give that a run. Let's see how it goes if we give it a run. So we're going to, actually, I reckon we're going to do a test like this. So instead of running the website every time, I'm just going to grab our function name and I'm just going to test it locally by running the function. So I'm going to say that the event ID is Jim, and that's who is hosting the event, and it's his B-Day party. And the attendee is Sarah. Sarah loves to go to all the parties. She hangs out with us on the stream, but she's super cool. Okay. So we've just created our local one here. So Sarah's coming. And then let's have a peek and see if it has appeared in Azure. Fingers crossed. It has. Here we go. So we can see Jim's birthday party. And we can go to edit is the fastest way to have a look. And we can see that Sarah is coming to the party, that party animal. Okay, cool. So jumping back to our code, let's do that for not just having one person come. Because if we had another person come, then we're probably we're gonna have a similar error to when we tried to create another container over the top of the other one. So I could run it and we'll probably grab that error. Here we go. The specified blob already exists. So blob already exists error. And that's what we're going to be trying to catch. Or we can catch the inverse because I've got it in the opposite order here. So we're going to try and add something to a blob. Well, we're trying to grab a blob first. And if that doesn't work, we're going to accept and fall back to doing this option. So we're going to have try here. And then the exception is going to be we could try and grab a different, let's try and grab something that doesn't exist yet. So we're going to say it's Todd's birthday and see what happens and grab that. Ooh. Need to write something in here. It's not going to work because I haven't added the code in. So let's have a think about what we're going to add in here first. And in a second, we'll grab that exception. So I'm just going to comment this code out for now so we can try what we want to do and then grab the error that we want to filter against. So with this one, we're going to start by let's just print a message of saying what we're downloading. So we're going to print downloading blob 2, and then we're going to say local file. That's just going to say where it's going. Okay, and then we want to try and grab something from the blob. So to do this, I've also prepared a string for this one earlier because they're kind of long, which they're easy to grab from the docs. So I highly recommend you jump onto the Azure Blob docs that I've linked on the landing page. They're super useful. That's how I learned all of this. I had no idea how to use Azure Blob about 6 weeks ago before I planned this stream. And now it seems to be working. We'll see at the end of the episode, but it's really fun to use and super simple. And the docs are really illuminating. So we're going to use this, which is we're going to just talk through what this center part does first. So this part is just saying download the blob, and we want to read all of the data out of the blob. And then what we want to do, so we could just download that and put it straight into a file and then start looking through that file. But we'd have to open the file again and read that. And I don't really need to have the file be made and then open it again. So I'm just going to take what we could put in a file and just turn it into text in a string that I'm going to put in a variable. And I'm going to call that variable attendees. So this is the list of people who have already said that they're coming, but it's not a list yet because it's just a big string that's separated by new lines of who's coming. So I'm going to turn it into a list because I'd like to see what's in the list before I start adding things to it. So I'm going to say attendees.split. Python's not your main language. I'm just letting you know it's got some really useful string operations. So we're just going to split that file up on new lines. So every time there's a new line, just give us a new element. And we're going to get a list of everybody who's coming. So it might look something like Jim, Sarah, and Renee are going to the party. And that will be in our attendees list. So now I could start by just appending to the attendees list. So we go attendees.append, and then I take our attendee, which we have up here, and just whack it in the brackets, and that would just add it to the list. And that would be, and then we could write that out. But because someone might go and press the RSVP button another time, they might go back on the page and hit it again, I want to check that the person isn't already attending the event. So I'm going to say if attendee not in the list of attendees that we've just grabbed from Azure Blob, then we're going to add them. This means you're not allowed to have two friends with the same name. So I'm just letting you know, don't have two friends with the same name. It's not worth it. So yeah, that's what we're going to do just for the simplicity of this. In terms of a real web app, you'd probably give your friends IDs, so you could just add the IDs to the list. But for this simple demonstration, we're just going to go with you only have one friend named Sarah. I have many friends named Sarah, but you're only allowed to have one at your party. Okay, so we're checking to see that the person hasn't already RSVP'd. They're adding them to the list. And then we're going to make the local file. So just like we've done below here, we can make our local file. So I'm just going to grab that code actually. We possibly could structure this differently so you could use this code twice, but seems just simplest for our demonstration to have it all in its own little boxes with its new one and its existing Azure Blob one. So once we've written our attendees, so we want to write all of our attendees to the file, we're actually going to need to join our list again because we've got a whole list, whereas here we just had a single line of text, which is easy to write. So similarly, we can just, like we did with split, we can easily just put things back together by saying we want to join our attendee list back together with new lines. So just doing the opposite of what we did here. And then we'll have our local file when we run the code. But we also want to push that file that we've just created to Azure Blob. So similarly to what we did before, but before we didn't have anything up there. So we want to delete the existing blob first. There are options for updating things, but this, for the purposes of our very basic thing, this is what we want to go with. We're going to take our local file and we're going to use read binary again, take all of that stuff out, and we're going to do, with our blob client, we're going to first delete the existing blob, and then we're going to create our new file by uploading a blob with data. And I should have written data here. Here we go. So that's just like what we did before. But we delete the thing first. Okay, let's give that a run and then see what happens. So we've got our code running it down here. We're going to try it. Let's try it for a thing that already exists, for Jim's birthday party, and see if we get another thing. We're going to invite Jack to Jim's birthday party. Okay, let's have a peek. Jack is now attending. Okay, but what about something where we don't have something, we don't already have the event? So this is Sally's birthday party. And error found, blob not found. So we need to use that as our error handling. So we could have done it either way. We could have started with, we could have done the same way that we did for the container, that it already exists, or we can do it this way where we say we can't find it. And just, you know, because we can, we're going to do it in this order. So we're going to try this. And if that doesn't work, because it doesn't exist, we're going to say, we're going to accept the resource not found error. And we're going to import that one as well. Oh. Copying and pasting there. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now let's give it another go. So specified blob doesn't exist, but we just accepted for this. One more time. Interesting. Okay, well, that's an interesting error because let's just try it with something else just for good measure. Okay, no, it really doesn't like us. Okay, the specified blob does not exist. Have we used the wrong, okay, let's use blob not found instead of resource not found, which is different than what I saw when I was, you know, setting up this code base. But let's give it a go. Pop to the top and see what we can do. Any luck with Tom's birthday party? Cannot import blob not found from Azure Core exceptions. Okay, very interesting. Okay. You'd think that, you know, things would be the same as when you plan them, but let's give it another look. The live coding gods have not, you know, smiled upon me in this second here. Maybe we're just going to switch these around because maybe that will be better for us. And as I said, it doesn't really matter which one you do. Some cases it might be more useful to do one than the other. But give this a go. Okay. So let's see. Let's see what this one said here. To grab the error, we're just going to do this. We're going to run the code. It's going to want to dedent itself first. Okay, let's give it a go and see what error we get. Well, firstly, it does not like this, so we're going to get rid of that. Okay, here we go. Fingers crossed we can pick up the error. Okay, so it says blob not found for this one as well. Okay, we want to go the other way around so we can see what error this one might generate for us. If we do one that already does exist. We get rid of this one. Very surprising to me. Okay. We do get resource not found error, so I don't know why it was not being kind to us. So we haven't seen this resource. So we're going to, let's see if this one will work for us. Fingers crossed, everybody. Okay, so we do this one. Let's talk through it. So we try to create a file. I would be expecting this one to say that the resource already exists. So let's do it with a resource that already exists. Let's say Jim. Jim's birthday. Here's a go. And now we need to, now it would like us to import this resource not found. So let's see if it will smile upon us. Okay, so the blob already exists. Thank you. Resource exists. We'll take that one. I believe we might have that one already installed, imported. So good. We're making progress. And if it does exist, we're going to, okay, we have progress. No more errors. So who have we said is coming to Jim's birthday party? We've said Jack is coming, which we had before. So let's say I'm coming to the party. And now I'm coming to the party. Okay, let's do one more new event for good measure. This is Tina's party. Fingers crossed. Blob not found. Interesting. Okay, let's try with the resource not found error, which we've got here. Okay, so we should say, if we try to make something, try to make a file. Oh, maybe because we need to actually create this blob that might not already exist if we do it in this different order. Interesting. Okay. I'm going to grab us some code that I've prepared earlier, just so we can have a look at why it might not be working. So, same code, theoretically. And maybe we've imported something that's not correct. Okay, so we can make something work. I wonder what the difference is the question. So, we've got our resources not found. So, when we haven't got something existing on Azure Blob, it will trigger this second response where we create the file and then we write that binary up into the cloud in Azure Blob. And as far as I can tell, these are very similar. So I'm not sure what's going on, but I'd rather move on to something so we can get through our thing. So we've got our code there, which I'm sure we could have sat here all day and figured it out, or sat here for another 10 minutes, but we would have run out of time. So we've got this working. So now we can have a peek at all of these things going up into Azure Blob. Actually, let's take a second to remove this testing code, comment that out, and then actually run it on our site. So let's run that again. We're going to pop over here. We're going to make an invitation. Friend's going to come. Sally is also going to come to my birthday party. And let's go and have a peek at Azure and see what it says. So back to the overview. We have a whole bunch from all of our testing, and it's now my birthday party. Let's have a look at what we can see of who is coming. We can go to edit, and we can see Friend and Sally, just what we did on our website, both coming to the event. So that's terrific. Okay, so we now have that all working, and we can see it up there in Azure. And you maybe would be like, nah, that's enough, we're done, and we could just download that. That's how you could get your RSVPs. If you were, for instance, making this for your own wedding, you didn't want to have a web page where you could see who was coming, then you could just do that and you'd be done. But why stop there when we have another 14 minutes left of the stream, and we can get some more stuff done? So because we have multiple events on our site, because anyone can just make something, we're going to want to see what the events are. So we're going to create a page of the events. So one for every one of the files in there. And then we're going to create an RSVP event list. So you're going to click on your event, and then you can see who said they're coming. So jumping back to our code, too many screens open today. Here we go. Okay, so we already know how to download our attendee list because that's what we've done to update our blob. So we knew how to do that when we did that here in this line where we grabbed the content. But we haven't done yet is downloading a list of all of the blobs. So we're going to make 2 pages, 2 super simple pages, I think. So I'm going to just go to the top with our server where we had all of our routes. So we had our form and we had our viewing the invitation. So I'm just going to pop it here just above our API, just because that's kind of a bit of a different, route compared to these. So I'm going to pop one of these in here, and I'm going to call this route, what shall we call it? We can call it event list, or the events, I think. And then we're going to call def event list. Or just do def events again. And then what are we going to put inside it? Well, we want to grab all of the blobs that we can see in Azure Blob. So to do that, we want to grab the container client, which at the top, we either made one if it was the first time running this file, or we grabbed it. So we can grab the container client, and we want to get the blob list out of that. So we want to see all the blobs that are contained in the container client, and then we're going to go list blobs. Super simple. Give us the list of blobs. And then I think I just want to get what we want to have the name of each of them. So maybe we can just pass this in to a template. So we're going to make a template called event list, and it's just going to be a list of links that we can click on to get to each individual event. So we're going to want to use our blob list. I'm going to see how that goes. We could do some more formatting to get the names out and the events out individually, but that's really just data processing at the end of the day. And I'd rather show you, how to plumb all the bits together, because plumbing can be the trickiest part of programming. So let's jump into templates and make a new template. So we're going to call this one events. HTML. It's going to be another beautiful one that doesn't have any CSS. So I'm just going to grab all of this here, because who needs CSS when we can have plain text? So we'll just close all of these so we can get started on our beautiful list of events. So we're going to have a list of items, and we want to just do something for each item in the list. And just like in Python, you can do that in template form. using a for loop. So we're just going to do for, let's say, event file in event list. So we're just going to show the file name. We could strip off bits and pieces of it, but this will be more fun. Or more, just simpler to get through. Okay, here we go. So it's eating my curly brackets. Here's code. I didn't ask for that. Okay. And then we're just going to have, we could have a dot point list. Maybe we'll do that on the attendees. We're just going to do paragraphs in here. And then it's just going to be a link every single time. So we're going to have the href, the hypertext reference is what that is short for, I believe. And then we're just going to link. Then we're going to create a route. So when someone clicks on this, where do we want to send them? We're going to send them to a page that's going to be called event-RSVPs. And then we're going to do a specific one for each event. So I'm going to give it, I'm going to put event file in here as well. So that way it will be, event RSVPs, Renee BD party.txt. The TXT doesn't really matter. It's not going to use it as a file extension. It's just going to be part of the URL. We could strip that off, as I said. But just for simplicity, we're going to give this a go. And then we're going to put the text that we want to appear, which once again is just going to be event file. Please do let me know if you have any questions along the way as well. But yeah, we're covering up quite a bit of code today, but a few different interesting things. And I think Azure Blob's quite fun to work with. And at the end of all of this code here, we're going to need to put our end for. So you don't have to do in your actual Python, but because it's in templating, we do need to have that structure so we can understand what we're doing. Okay, so we've got that, and we need to pass in event list because that's what it's going to be looking for. So let's give a rendering this template a go. So we're going to return the template. Then we're going to give it the template called events.html. And then we're going to say that event list equals event list. Blob list, that's what we've called it in here. So let's see how it goes, because I know these blobs are actually, they have a bunch of metadata, but it might just give us the representation when we try and print it out. So let's see how it goes. Otherwise, we'll just grab the name. Okay, so let's jump across to the server. Be good if it gave us our link to jump across to. Here we go. There's our link. Okay, so instead of going and making a thing, we're going to go to events, see what's there. Nothing's there. Interesting. Let's inspect element and see what's going on in the body. We've got paragraphs. Have I forgotten to make them have text or something? Maybe I didn't close the tags. Something interesting is going on here. It's got a lot of stuff. So it's kind of freaking out. Okay, so we're going to just grab, instead of giving it everything, it's a nice experiment, but we're going to grab the event name for each thing. The name of each of the blobs. So here we are. So we could do this in a for loop, but I really like list comprehension, so I'm going to do it with a list comprehension. You could just go for each item in blob list, append blob list.name to a new list, but this is just, it's fun. So let's just say for B in blob list, that would just give us back the same list. But if I go b.name, then it should hopefully give us what we want. Bouncing mouse across to here, fingers crossed. Still doesn't like us. But it has much nicer stuff in here. It's because I haven't put anything for it to actually have an appearance in the list. Silly me. Okay, so jumping in here, because I haven't actually closed my A tag. So here we go. If we just put, I put this in the wrong place. That's what we've done. We're going to pop that in the middle here. And then we're going to give it another go. Here we go. Now we can go to these locations and click our links. But of course, we haven't built these pathways yet. So that's our last thing for today before we finish up and push it to the cloud. So we just need to make one more template file. This one's going to be called event RSVPs. RSVPs.html. And just so I have enough time to show you how to add your secrets, those environment variables, I'm just going to pop this in here. It's just like the last one. So it's not very interesting. I've added a heading to say that these people are coming to the event. I'm actually going to get rid of that so we don't have to do so much data processing. So we're going to pass in an attendee list. You could add a heading. You could, of course, add more things like the name and split it all out. But we're just going to do this. I'm making it into a dot point list because that seems fun and more like an RSVP list. And then we're going to make one more path in here. So let's just grab this. Okay, this one's going to be called RSVPs. We need to make sure we have the code that's going to let us go to the correct location name for different events. So I'm going to grab this from what I've prepared. We're going to call it event RSVPs, and then we're going to have the event file name. So that could be gymsbday.txt, and that's going to say, hey, this is what we're looking for. We need you to make a special template that's just about Jim's birthday. So we can then say we're expecting to receive this argument from the URL in here, and then we can use that. So what we're going to do is we want to get the blob, as we did before, we just want to get the blob client, and we're going to get the attendees again, just like we did below. So we get the data from Azure Blob, just like we did when we were pulling the data to add stuff to it. We're going to get the attendees and turn it into a big string, and then we're going to turn it into a list. And then I'm just going to borrow this here and make some edits to render our template, which is called event RSVPs. And we're going to give it our attendees. Okay, and then we're going to see how that goes. So we're going to pop across to here. Refresh for us. Running right now. So popping back. And we need to update the name of this. So we're going to call this event RSVPs. There we go. Now our server will be happy. It's running. And then let's see who's coming to Jim's birthday party. No one yet. Is it all of them? It is all of them. Where is our content? Let's see what our server says. Have we missed something? So we've got all of our attendees getting passed in. For each person in attendees, there we go. We're much happier now. And let's make sure that server is saved. And then, fingers crossed, where is all our content? Let's start by printing out attendees. So we'll pop across, give this a refresh, see if it prints anything out. Friend and Sally are theoretically attending the event. And then we pass in something that's got the wrong name. Here we go. So what happens when I take shortcuts and just copy and paste things? Okay, I have faith this time. Here we go. Friend and Sally are attending the event. So that's fantastic. So we now have a live thing, and we just need to do one more thing, which is, well, first we need to commit the code, and that's going to push it up to the site that we've got. Whenever we commit something, it just pops them into the site. And then we're going to commit these templates. Okay, and now changes to server. We don't need to add these files because they're just ephemeral files. I'm going to say Azure Blob, and tick that. We're going to push that up. And then I'm going to do a quick demo on where you need to add your secrets. I've added them early, so while this deploys, we'll just have a quick peek at that, and then we can see the finished product. Fingers crossed, and no, the tech demo gods will smile upon us for the last, for the last minute of this stream. Okay, so go back to RSVPs. No, we want to jump to our web app. So this one is called Live Web App, my large collection of ever-growing web apps of the same project. And then we go to configuration. And this is where we put our secrets. So that's where you put your connection strings. And it's super easy. As you can see here, you just do add a new one, and then you put in the name. Ours was Azure Storage Connection String. And then we put in the value, which was the thing that I didn't show you on screen, but you could grab from your Azure Storage account and then pop it in here. And then instead of using .env, I forgot to not commit the .env thing, so that's going to be a problem. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to comment them out. So we're going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of these. And we're going to commit that again, because otherwise it won't work up there because it doesn't need to have those. So let's pop those up. Node.env on prod. And we're going to send that away. We're going to push that up. And while that loads, I'm just going to tell you, firstly, thank you all for coming to the series. When I can find my slides, here we go. So we've created our thing. We've added our environment variable. Now we're just waiting for it to deploy. So I'm going to say thank you all for joining my stream. It's my first stream series. It's had a few technical difficulties, but I think it's gone all right. And I've really enjoyed having you company for this. Especially, we've had a lot of people joining every week, and we've had Sarah, who's been committing her code. I can see other people are making their own things in their own accounts as well, which is fantastic. So it's just been wonderful to have you. I really hope you join me for my next series. Here are all those links again. Remember, you can get a free Azure subscription and trial, so you can get free credit. Check out the links because they're super useful to the docs, which has taught me a lot about Azure Blob. And I hope you join me for what's coming up next week and for all of next month, which is called What in the Wordle? What's in the Wordle? We'll be talking about Wordle and what you can do with Python to make cool Wordle stuff and other games. So we'll make our own variation on Wordle just to run in Python in the command line. We'll do some data science to talk about what is the best word to start with, and we'll also take a look. That's the one with the link. We'll also take a look at how to make a Wordle solver and maybe take a peek at some machine learning to do with Wordle. So that'll be super fun. And we'll just learn a lot of good Python tips and tricks. We'll do some stuff with Jupyter Notebooks, a lot of VS Code, and it'll be fantastic. And I'd love to hear all of your opinions on Wordle as well if you are a Wordle fan. So please do come and tell us about your favorite starting word. Also coming up in March for International Women's Day on March the 8th at 4 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, we'll have an International Women's Day panel with some fantastic guests. They're all tutors of the Girls Programming Network. We're partnering with Tech Inclusion, not-for-profit that me and the lovely Alex McCulloch have just started, along with Nikki Ringland, to help support inclusion in tech. But yeah, I hope you join us for those events. And let's pop back and see if our site is deployed. And I'll pop the link into the chat so you can all check it out as well. So is this our live one? Okay. Whoop. Is it still alive? Is the first question. It might have died. Fingers crossed. Let's pop back to our overview and just grab a link to the root site. if it has died, I'll still give you a link, and then you can try it, in a little bit of time when hopefully I've got it back up on its feet. Live demos, they're always a tricky one. So that's oh dear. Okay. Well, I'm going to have you show you where the logs are because they're just super useful to know. And then we might wrap up there unless there's something that's obviously gone wrong that we can fix in a heartbeat. But we can have a look at the logs and we can see that the deployment has been successful. So I don't know what's not running. Let's have a quick peek at these logs in the log stream. We might have it on the wrong port. Let's have one quick peek. Got it on port 8080. Okay, last try, and then hopefully it'll work. Otherwise, I'll post a link that Sarah can hop into the channel. And we do have a question, so I'm just going to push this code, and then I'm going to get to the question from Renee. So this one is port 8000. Okay, fingers crossed. I'm going to save this first. I'm going to pop this in. We're going to tick that, and we're going to send it off, and we're going to cross our fingers, everybody. Meanwhile, we're going to answer Vinay's question. Anybody else who has a question, I'd love to answer it. Hi, Vinay. That was my first event of yours, and I'm attending. Glad I attended it. Is it possible for you to share the code like the GitHub link? Thank you. And absolutely, Renee. That is all on the event page, which Sarah can share a link to you again. But it's just on so the Git repo is here, and the series page, it also has a link to that one. And when you're on the series page, you can pop over to the future streams as well. So we've got Wordle. If you just hit up in the top bar, Microsoft Talks, you can check out the series for What in the Wordle, and you're also the fireside chat for International Women's Day. Unless there's any other questions, let's hop back, cross our fingers, and hope that it's deployed. Let's see. I'm not hopeful. It's being quite slow. Okay, it's warming up. That's possibly good. Oh no, we've still got an error. Okay, well, I will share with you all of the link to the final website on all of my Twitter. I will let you all go because sometimes it just takes a couple of minutes to debug, and I don't want to have you sitting here watching me play in the terminal for 20 minutes. And probably Sarah has cooler, better things to do than watch me do that as well. But I will post a link to it on my Twitter. So I am @noble_Renee on Twitter. So please give me a follow. Oops, that's way too big. Please give me a follow if you want to see more events like this. I post about all my upcoming series on Twitter or following me on LinkedIn as well if you want to send me a message on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you and hear any updates you have on your programming adventures. So, yes, thank you all for coming very much. Sorry, we went a little over time, but yeah, technical difficulties of all manner today.
Thanks, Renee. All good. Well, we got there in the end, and there's always time to go back and obviously see on your Twitter and via the event page itself the finished result once you get those bugs fixed. Like we mentioned earlier today, we've just posted a bunch of resources in the comment section. So if you scroll back up, you'll be able to see the additional resources provided that are also on the event page. And also we've posted the link to our next series, which Renee just mentioned, so you can register for episodes 1 and 2 now. And if there's anything you'd like to reference back today whilst you're having a go again yourself, you can do so on the YouTube channel, which is in that comment section as well. But for now, we'll leave it there. So thank you again so much, Renee, for this series this month, and we look forward to having more exciting, great new things coming up in March. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a good rest of your afternoon, evening, or morning, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sarah, and I hope you see you all next month.
See you. Bye.